What are some not-so-fun facts? Pedophilia, historically speaking and in the modern day, is concerningly common, especially among people in powerful positions. Back in Greek and Roman times it was very common and people were open about it. Obviously everyone knows about the Catholic Church cover-ups that happened the past decades, and many people in powerful positions seems to be closet pedophiles. We all know about Epstein. It's troubling how common it is for people in powerful positions, or people who just have power over children, to be pedophiles. I had a high school teacher who was convicted for having a disgusting amount of CP on his computer, and a Catholic priest at my parish was exposed for being a pedophile. From the perspective of humanity as a whole, for a long time it wasn't even looked down upon, and in many civilizations women were married at the ages of 11-16. I'm not trying to justify it, but just pointing out how disturbing common it is for humans to be attracted to children. Kurt Cobain's dead because he played his guitar wrong. He was ambidextrous, so he could have played either way, but went left-handed because he felt like standing out that way. Well, turns out he had scoliosis, and it was aggravated by him wearing his strap on his right shoulder instead of his left. This made a pinched nerve in his spine hurt even worse, which he misdiagnosed himself as having a stomach ailment, which is why he did as much heroin as he did, which was such a big contributor to his suicide. The biggest problem is that 1/2 of the world's population lives near the water. So when it rises, all these people are going to need to move inland. This mass migration will trigger wars. On top of that will be massive droughts, and crop failure, leading to people fighting over water and food, as well as land. All this will happen over the next 90 years, with things really starting to pick up in 10. The world heating up will cause ice caps to melt, which in turn will cause massive floods, lots of premature death, and possibly a reshaping of the land. I've also heard that there are some long-dormant viruses currently frozen in the ice, and when the ice melts, they'll be free. Humanity is currently divided on whether to do anything to mitigate the effects or continue letting corporations profit off destroying the environment. The plastic bag, however, has brought up with it carbon that was already sequestered away. The cotton plantation may have destroyed some forest, but that carbon was not sequestered out of the system, as well as the hydrocarbons. Just use that damn cotton bag until it rips, or worse. Throwaway culture is what is worse for the environment than anything else. It was the Milgram experiment, where scientists had people go into a room where they conducted a survey to someone behind a curtain, and for every wrong answer the person gave they got a shock, and each shock got strong as more wrong answers came in. The shocks were fake and no one actually got hurt, but the person receiving the shocks was told to scream in pain when the shock was supposed to come in until the shocks were lethal, and they acted dead, and 2/3 of people, even under protest, went through with what they thought were actual lethal shocks to a person. The only prompting that the person giving the shocks was told when they protested was the scientists in lab coats saying, "Please continue the experiment." It was to study why so many people during the Holocaust allowed it to happen. Oh, let's talk about medieval torture facts. There's one form of torture where they would tear your tongue out by slowly twisting it. Another, having bamboo grow through your body, stuffing you into a bronze bull statue and then lighting a fire under it. You were slowly cooked alive in the worst way possible. Another, similarly, you were cooked from the inside out. The way one would accomplish this was by pouring molten lead down your throat and stuffing you with straw. Another, one would have a small hole in their stomach cut open, and pull out one end of your intestine and tie it to a stake. You were then put on a cot and carried around the stake in circles while your intestines slowly unraveled. That's all for today, folks. Dolphins are evil, like the love child of Jeffrey Dahmer and the Zodiac Killer evil. They torture pufferfish because they get high off of the toxins, kidnap young dolphins, both female and male, from other pods to use as sex slaves, will rape anything with a hole, and the females release a jelly that has the potential to make most animals orgasm so hard they go into cardiac arrest and die. Fuck dolphins. Pun intended, because fuck you too. The world will end and there is nothing anyone can do about it. When I say and I literally mean the Earth will cease to exist. It'll take a very long time, like another billion years or so, but eventually the sun will swallow the planet and erase all evidence that life existed if it doesn't still exist. That means every work of literature and art, every monument and statue, every building and historical sites, etc. Everything any human has ever or will ever do, make, or say will one day be wiped from existence. Our entire history as a species will just be gone. The oldest cave painting, every exploit any war hero endured and the reasons for it, the rise and fall of nations, our first steps on the moon, the internet, your lineage, all of it will be gone. It might as well happen the second you die because you won't be around for it, assuming anyone will be. Looking at it that way, it'll happen at the end of your life. 20 years from now, maybe 50, tomorrow even, it'll all just be gone. Shit, I can't remember all the details, but since this fact keeps getting repeated, it's the only one in can say I 100% is false. Long story short, the direction that PvZ2 was going to take wasn't the one that the original game developer wanted. It had nothing to do with microtransactions at first, and EA did wanted to put them in due to the game being a mobile exclusive. Although there was plenty of dots there, the public connected the two that were most convenient for people to get behind and be EA bad. EA bad though. Funny enough, yes, it is counting the rings. However, the rings in this case are the layers that make up the clamshell. You can't find out how many layers are there until you open up and take apart the clamshell, which means killing the clam. There is no way to know how old a clam is just by looking at its size, as growth rate depends on environmental conditions, although I'd imagine this would have still be a pretty large clam. So just like trees, you don't know how old it is until you've killed it. Okay, I have a few questions. How the hell do you know to all this clam is 507 years old? Is it like counting the rings or something? 2. Who's supposed to track this, and why didn't this catch anybody's notice before the freezing attempt? And 3. If it does have something like tree rings and being bigger than all the rest, how come the other researchers didn't notice this? Oh my god, that's got a lot of rings kind of clam in the first place. In 2006, a team of scientific researchers in Iceland were gathering clams in order to study the effects of climate change. They froze the clams, which ended up killing them. They ended up killing the oldest known clam still left alive, nicknamed Ming, which was 507 years old. Edit: if you gave me an award for this, then fuck you. I literally googled sad fact and this was one of the first things to pop up. I don't give a shit about clams. I don't even really know what a clam is. The problem is we are genetically programmed to eventually die. Our telomeres get stripped every time our cells divide. It's an infinitesimally small amount, but eventually, our telomeres are completely stripped and continued cell division starts cutting into the chromosomes of our DNA. When that starts to happen, cells stop functioning properly. Red blood cells store, transport oxygen, energy less efficiently, our immune system is less effective at fighting off, suppressing diseases, and our organs begin to struggle doing their jobs, and eventually everything starts to shut down either from hypoxia, infection or systematic organ failure. Just like how laser pointers aren't healthy for cats to chase. They can never catch the light, so it just makes them steadily more and more anxious, as opposed to any other toy, which they can catch. I read in a thread a couple days ago that airport sniffer dogs are rotated out when they alert, so when it's time for their shift to end they send somebody through with something for them to catch so that they know the game is over and they can stop being on alert. As a human, imagine being given a Where's Waldo picture with no Waldo in it, and that finding Waldo was your job for the day. Think about how unbelievably anxious and stressed you'd be 10 minutes in, let alone 3 hours. With our first kid, my wife made a lot of friends at baby classes, The first time I met one of them, she told us her birthing story. She had given birth and been sewn up, but upon going to the toilet afterwards she ended up screaming, "I'm shitting through my vagina," to get a nurse in there. Turns out she'd actually torn in a way that the doctor was able to put his finger in one hole and have it come out the other. Lots of stitches afterwards and a lot of aftercare to make sure it healed. Vet tech here. Most of our older pets don't die of old age, they die of cancer. It sucks. Edit. Adding what I answered in the comments up here because I think it's important. There's no way to prevent cancer. It's a mutation of cells. However, to keep your good boy or girl with you longer, some things that really make a difference. A quality diet. Please don't feed them the cheapest stuff. It's like humans eating the cheapest foods. Not terribly healthy, though it may fill all the nutritional requirements. All the regular vaccines. For the love of dog, make sure you get your puppies the parvo vaccine, and a good flea, tick and heartworm preventative. Exercise and not letting them become overweight, and regular dentals are even better. Edit 2. Also, screw you if you buy your vaccines for your domestic pets at the feed store or the Tractor Supply. Talking dogs and cats here, not large farm animals. Just because it's cheaper and has the same chemical name doesn't mean you're giving the right dose, amount, at the proper location, or getting the assurance that those vaccines have been treated and stored in the correct manner. You get what you pay for. Edit 3. Added location to second edit. Only about 1 in 10 cells in your body are genetically human. It's not your body. There are so many microorganisms living in and on your body that they vastly outnumber you. You are not mostly human, largely bacteria. Gross, right? Hell no. It's awesome. I am a walking ecosystem. Trillions of lives depend on me to survive. Trillions. I am their home, their planet. I could harm or help them on a whim. In turn, they can kill me right back. Some may leave for other planets, but most will live their entire existence with me. We are the people of me, and that's why it's cool I didn't shower today. Movies etc. don't portray drowning people very accurately. This has led to a common misconception of what a drowning person actually looks like. Since a lot of people don't really know what to look for, a large number of tragic incidences of children drowning while swimming occurred with the child's parents right there, close by, near enough to save them. If only they had realized before it was too late. I have no idea if this is true, but in a documentary about the Rwanda genocide, one of the people interviewed said a neighborhood would gather together and switch husbands every night. When attackers came at night and made fathers rape daughters or sons rape mothers, it wasn't as traumatic because it was your neighbor pretending to be your husband/father/son. The interviewee said they learned the practice from Nanking immigrants. Here is another cool thought. It could have occurred at a point that is expanding from us at faster than the speed of light. In other words, if it's traveling at the speed of light, it will never reach us. There are points in the universe, in a large radius around us, that because of the universe expanding, we can never reach because the expansion of the universe is faster than the speed of light between us and anything outside of that radius. Anything outside of that radius is gone forever, to include a false vacuum decay event. Okay, so all of my knowledge about this subject can be summed up to one sagged video, but doesn't that shit spread at the speed of light? So light could have a false vacuum reaction going on one edge of our galaxy, but it's gonna take like 100k light years to get to us, right? Was losing weight to fit into my dress. Weight went down, looked 20 weeks pregnant. Went to the doctor and he freaked out a bit. Did not fit the dress. Bridal shop were bitches. Ended up doing alterations for free once I bawled and told them what happened. I was 19, so also a lot of people thought I got married because I was pregnant. So fun. That part of our wedding speech was great/s. The stupid thing about all of this is that the whole premise as to why liquids are restricted is horrifically impractical. The worry was making an explosive compound from acetone and peroxide, which can be done theoretically, but would require a large quantity of the reagents, much more than 4.1 ounces to actually do damage to a plane. a long time to prepare the explosive, so you'd need a very long-haul flight where you could hide in the bathroom the whole time, and a large amount of ice on the plane to keep the product stable until it was time to detonate. So if you could manage to take several large bottles onto the plane, then get the flight attendants to deliver all of the ice on the plane to the bathroom where you hole up for 8 hours, and nobody suspects anything. Well, implausible is an understatement. They've pulled me aside a few times to swab me and run it through the mass spec they have. The thing is, all those times I was traveling home from university where I was studying chemistry. The particularly interesting part is one of my professors had a photo of him and George Bush on the wall from when he met him as part of a panel advising the government on mass specs for TSA. He said they were trash and didn't work well at all. Even if they worked well, how could you possibly expect a normal TSA agent to be able to read the spectrum? I was trained in chemistry and probably couldn't do it. Male anglerfish are rarely spotted in the wild, and took a long time to find at all. Eventually, they were discovered latched onto the females, and one of them, can't remember if the male or the female, releases an enzyme to break down the male body, leaving only his testes that she can now use when she needs them for babies. The chainsaw was originally invented to aid in childbirth for cutting through the pelvic bone. No, I'm not kidding. The introduction of helmets to the military actually caused a surge in head injuries. This is because those injuries used to be deaths, but now more people were surviving them, albeit injured. People joke about Australia having dangerous animals of all kinds. However, number one enemy to Australians is the sun. Australia has the highest skin cancer rate in the world. An average Australian is 4 times likely to get skin cancer than any other type of cancer, and 2/3 of Australians will probably get it by the age of 70. I love Tom Segura's bit about the first 48. Here's all I'm saying. I can't tell you where to go. I can tell you where not to go. Wherever they filmed the first 48 on A&E. Oh, if you're not familiar with the show, here's what it is. Camera crews follow real homicide detectives for the first 48 hours after a murder. And the reason that time distinction is so important, is that after 48 hours, they give up on that murder. They're like, that's some old shit. What do you want to do today? You're like, how about you keep trying to solve that murder, man? That shit happened on Monday. It's Wednesday. We're not gonna solve that shit. Really? There's a wasp in Australia that hunts spiders. It doesn't eat them, though. It paralyzes them, makes a little mud cocoon for each one, and before sealing it off, lays a single egg on the now trapped spider. The egg hatches, the larva eats the still alive, and still paralyzed, spider, and then breaks out of the cocoon as a wasp. Got bit by a chipmunk with paralyzed hind legs and they said I could send the animal's head and $75 to have it checked. I kept him a cage like any other rodent and after a few weeks his legs began to move and I released him after about a month and a half. The hitch in his step made it easy to spot him over the next 2 summers. Once, I even came home just in time to chase off a cat that was stalking him. Correct. This is why rabies vaccinations for dogs, cats are mandatory in every state. It's not about them, it's about us. Animals are quarantined for 10 days after biting people because that's how long it takes for symptoms to show. That's the lucky animals BTW. Wildlife or pets either sick or unable to be quarantined are promptly euthanized, decapitated, and the head delivered to a lab to get its brain examined. You're more likely to survive almost anything than rabies. Internal decapitation? Yup. Shark bite? Yup. Being hit by a speeding car, scalped, or breaking your neck? Yes. Rabies is a death sentence, always, except for those 14 people in all of recorded medical history. Edit. Adding because apparently I need to. This only applies if you become symptomatic. I thought this was implied because you don't generally say you survived something that never manifested. Rabies was a big thing in the Philippines back in the 90s. We had a hospital dedicated for it, and there were so many PSA on TV showing rabies victims tied to bed convulsing, screaming, and foaming in the mouth. It made me not trust dogs for a long time. When I got bitten by a dog, I cried and started saying my goodbyes to my loved ones. My mom was a nurse, so she got me taken care of. That shit is scary.